Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Living in Switzerland. The series is brought to you by Rigby. We are a staffing and project services company based in Zurich. If you or anyone you know of is looking for a new role in Switzerland, or if you're looking to hire, let us know. We'd be happy to help. The best way to do that is by going to rigby.ch/apply and filling out the form. Then, if we have anything that might be of interest, we'll gladly let you know. Today, we are joined by Daniel, the Managing Director of Rigby, who some of you may already know from some of our earlier episodes. A question that often comes up is how the recruitment process works, so we thought we'd ask Daniel on to talk a little bit about that. Welcome back, Daniel.
Thank you, Catherine. It's good to be back.
So, to get started, can you tell us a little bit about just your background?
Sure. My name's Daniel. I come from England originally, but I've been living in Switzerland for about 20 years now. And I've got the citizenship, and I've been working in recruitment here in the Zurich area for just under 14 years now, and about 5 of those years with Rigby.
Okay, amazing. So tell us a little bit about what a staffing and project services company like Rigby is and how this works. So what different types of jobs and placements are there?
So there are two main types. That's permanent and contract. If we start with contracting, so a contract would be a fixed term engagement for an initial 6 or 12 months, say. At the end of those 6 or 12 months, they're often extended and or converted to internal or permanent later on. This happens more often than we would like, but we try to take it as a compliment. And with contracting, the employee is employed by us actually, but they work day to day at the customer. And we take care of all payrolling. So that means insurances, pension contributions, tax at source where necessary, and everything that goes with that.
Okay, so that's maybe for a lot of people a good way to start because, as you say, it's quite fixed, like for 12 months, so they can come and stay in Switzerland and sort of find out what it's all about, right?
See if they like the country, see if they like the role, and then take it from there.
All right, and there are also, as I understand it, projects. So what's the difference between just a regular contract and a project?
Yeah, so with a regular contract, the employee is employed by us, but they are managed day to day by their team lead at the customer. And they might not interact with us more often than once a month, say, when they send us their timesheet. With a project, it's different. It's also fixed term, but there are a few key differences. So the employee or employees are engaged for a specific piece of work rather than a specific time frame. And this comes with things like deliverables that we agree on and clawback clauses in case based on deadlines and so on. And we play a slightly more active role in the day-to-day management of the work being done alongside the project coordinators at the customer.
Okay, right. And those as well can be then turned into more permanent work placements, right? Yeah.
Mhm.
Okay. And then the other one is, as you said, is permanent placements. So tell us a bit about that.
Yeah, so a permanent placement is different because there the candidate will join the company directly and they'll be employed by them. So we help our client to identify someone to hire on an internal open-ended basis, and they're employed by them with all payrolling and so on handled by them.
Okay, right. So typically a more permanent contract that might last for many years at a time.
Yes, hopefully, if all goes well.
Okay. So let's now talk a bit about the clients. So those are all the businesses that you work with. Why do so many businesses use a staffing company, and what are maybe the main benefits of this?
Sure. So if you think about a typical HR business partner at many companies, they'll have all sorts of responsibilities besides recruitment. It could be anything from appraisals and, performance reviews and mediating in case of conflicts and lots of other things besides. It might only be a small part of their work week spent on recruiting. They might post a job ad, say, and see what comes in and perform a first filter of the applications before passing them on to the hiring manager. But they probably won't have the time to spend a full week searching and proactively approaching candidates.
Right, yes.
So there might not be anyone who is proactively reaching out to candidates who are passive, who may not be actively looking for a new role. So that's the first part of how an experienced recruiter can support. But there's quite a bit more to it than that. So once the prospective candidate has been identified, an outreach needs to be made, a dialogue needs to be established. The opportunity needs to be presented and the interest peaked. And then if that goes well, next the candidate's application needs to be presented to the client. Interviews need to be coordinated. Post-interview debriefs need to be handled, which may lead to negotiations and certain wishes from either side, which need to be communicated. So a good recruiter will take care of all of those things and really try to facilitate the process. And then in some cases, the candidate might not live in the Zurich area or even in Switzerland. So they'll need support to apply for a work permit and find accommodation and generally settle in, all of which will benefit both the candidate and the client, as it will improve the likelihood that they'll get off to a good start.
And I think that's where Rigby can really help, because you've done this so many times also with people from various countries. So how does it work for the client? What do you start with when a new client approaches you and maybe asks if you can fill a certain role?
Okay, so we'll begin with a first consultation, which is when we'll discuss the requirement and really try to understand what it is that they're looking for, what they do and don't want. We'll also try to understand what the challenges are or the pain points in filling the requirement. And then we'll discuss the feasibility. And it may be that we're not the right partner for that particular requirement. But if we think that we are and we think that we can deliver, then we'll agree on the terms, timelines, next actions, and preferred channels of communication. I think that's important because one client might like to meet in person to discuss progress, while another might want to do everything by email. So we try to learn this as early as possible and then stick to that.
Yeah, that makes sense.
And next comes the search phase. So we conduct a search drawing, first of all, on our existing network, so people we know. And then we also try to identify and reach out to passive candidates. It's not all a case of posting ads and seeing what comes in. A good recruiter will proactively search for candidates, most of whom will be passive.
Oh, I see.
So these passive candidates aren't actively applying for roles, and therefore they're unlikely to come to the client via other means. And we then carry out a thorough pre-screening of candidates. So this will include interviews and reference checks before presenting them. And when we do present, it'll be via the channels that we agreed on in stage one.
All right. So quite a comprehensive service.
Yeah. And then if the presentation goes well, the next stage will be interviews, and we'll support by scheduling the interviews, gathering and passing on feedback, including negative feedback where necessary, so we can spare the client having to do that. If it's a contract hire, we manage the entire offer, signing and onboarding processes, from making sure that they have the right permit if needed to dropping them off on their first day. We'll also take care of his or her employee benefits and make sure that all of the necessary social security contributions and insurances and so on are properly taken care of. And we'll also manage the process of extending the contract when the time comes, checking in with both the client and the employee in a timely, transparent way.
Right. And what about if it's a permanent hire at the client?
Okay, so if it's a permanent hire, we're available if needed to assist in the offer and reference taking and negotiation and signing and onboarding processes. And then post-placement, a good recruiter should also follow up at regular intervals to collect feedback and see how things are going.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense. And so let's discuss now maybe the flip side. So what about the candidate? If an expat would like to find a job in Switzerland, or someone maybe who's already in Switzerland, what are some of the biggest benefits of then working with a staffing company instead of just trying maybe to apply on LinkedIn and things like that?
Right. Well, a good recruiter will be in regular contact with his or her clients. And by doing so, he or she will normally hear of requirements before they are posted widely, before they're posted on LinkedIn. They might never be posted on LinkedIn, as the recruiter might connect the client and candidate sooner than that.
Okay, so some jobs would never then be available to people who are not with the recruiter.
Yeah. So in the case that someone gets promoted and needs to be backfilled, or someone leaves, or a new project is approved and new hires are necessary, the recruiter might be the first or one of the first people to hear about that.
Right. And then if they can fill it straight away, nobody else will ever find out.
It might
Can.
never be posted on LinkedIn.
Mm-hmm. All right.
And also, as mentioned, a local recruiter will be able to support the expat in applying for a permit and finding accommodation and so on. And this can really make a difference in those early days.
Yeah, I think absolutely. I mean, that's what a lot of people, I think, worry about. So if they know they've got support from the start, that's really helpful.
Mm-hmm.
And so let's say the candidate or an expat has now decided to reach out to you. and you believe that they could be a good fit for one of your clients. What's the process like? So, what can maybe the candidate expect from you?
Okay, so first of all, we'll meet with the candidate to discuss what it is that he or she is looking for, take our time to really try to understand their experience and their skills and their preferences. And
Mhm.
if we think we're the right partner to help, we'll agree on the next steps and preferred method of communication again. If we don't think that we can add value to the search, we'll let them know and point him or her in the direction of another recruiter who might.
Okay, right.
Yeah. And next comes the process of matching the candidate to the requirements that we're working on, and if necessary, proactively searching for more that would be suitable. If we think we have something that might be suitable, we'll present it via the preferred method of communication, and then we'll discuss it together. And if the candidate confirms interest, that we'll move forward. And if we do apply, then we'll draw on our knowledge of the customer and use this to present the application in the best way possible.
Yeah, and that's so important, isn't it? Because every employer is going to be slightly different in what they expect or what they prefer.
Sure. So any marginal thing like that that can give you an
Mhm.
edge is worthwhile, probably.
Absolutely. Yeah. And then, of course, I guess the next step is interviews.
hmm So if it comes to an interview, the recruiter should make sure that the candidate has all the information needed and should offer to help prepare, drawing on his or her knowledge of the customer. So as I said, this alone can give the candidate an edge versus the competition.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think when we were talking, you mentioned that some employers in Switzerland like quite formal wear and
Mhm.
others are more casual. So something like that, definitely, if sort of maybe a candidate turns up in a suit and everybody else is very casual, then that wouldn't be great, right?
Sure, it could be
Um,
something as simple as that, or it could be some kind of insight into the technology that they're using, or
mhm.
anything at all, really.
Yeah, really helpful. And then what happens after the interview? So either it went well or it didn't, but what's the next step?
Okay, so after the interview, there'll be feedback and follow up. So the
Mm.
recruiter should debrief both with the candidate and with the client. This way, no one should be left hanging, and there should be plenty of opportunity for everyone to share their thoughts about how it's going. And there may be further interviews to book, and the recruiter should be able to manage all of that.
Right, yeah. Okay. And then, of course, if all goes well, there's going to be an offer, right?
Sure. So if all goes well with the interviews, then the candidate should be offered the role. And the recruiter should make sure that both the client and the candidate have all the information they need. And this could be anything from the terms and conditions to notice periods to start dates to criminal record checks and debt letter checks and lots of other things besides. There may
Hmm.
also need to be some negotiation, which the recruiter should also be able to support with. So basically, a good recruiter should be able to help guide the process and reach an agreement that works for everyone.
Okay, great. And so obviously, you are the director of Rigby. So let's talk a little bit about Rigby so in the Swiss market. So, what sets Rigby apart?
Okay, well, between us, our team has over 40 years' experience in the market here in Switzerland. And over that time, we've
Hmm.
been lucky to develop contacts at lots of different clients. So hopefully, by working with us, you'll gain access to those contacts. Lastly, though, I'd have to say I'm not sure there is any secret sauce, honestly. It's rather a case of just working hard, trying to do high quality work, trying to be efficient, doing what you say you're going to do, and treating people fairly.
Right. And I think also a matter of finding the right people, right? In terms of if someone reaches out to you, as you said, they might be a good fit or they might not. So try to reach out to recruiters to see
For
if it's a
sure.
good fit. Yeah.
hmm
So what kinds of candidates is Rigby looking for, or what industry do you work in?
Okay. We cover the IT, insurance, and finance sectors primarily. So
Mhm.
we try to keep our focus fairly narrow and stick to those.
Right. Okay. So if a listener is either trying to find someone, trying to recruit someone, or a candidate looking to move to Switzerland and work in Switzerland, how can they get started at Rigby?
Sure. So please do reach out. We'd be happy to hear from you. And so for candidates, the best way to do that is by filling out the form on our site at rigby.ch/apply. And for clients, please go to rigby.ch/requirements and we'll take it from there.
Excellent. All right. That's it for today. That was a little bit about how the recruitment process works. Thanks once again to Daniel for joining us.
Thank you too, Catherine. It was fun.
And thanks to you for listening. If you enjoyed the episode, please leave a review on your favorite podcast platform. Once again, if you are looking either to hire or to be hired here in Switzerland, please reach out to Daniel and the team at Rigby. They'd be happy to hear from you. We'll include all the links in the show notes. Thanks, and until the next time.